Well, folks, we've got Tara and Todd Youngblood, and welcome to the Made to Thrive show. There is a couple in my life that I thank every single day, and I'm so grateful for them because I've got a sleep system on my bed that has improved my sleep dramatically as well as my wife's, and there's no more fighting. My narrative is simple. We used to struggle with temperature, and I don't feel the cold at all, and Helen, my wife, feels the cold. And so there was always a struggle with blankets. There was always a struggle with trying to find the correct temperature, which, affected our sleep. And so I'm very grateful to this couple. And it's what a privilege and what an honor to have them on. I think if you were live, I would have a drum roll and I would say, welcome, Tara and Todd Youngblood, to the Made to Thrive show, where we optimize the mind, body, and soul. So a lovely couple. And Tara's dad was born in South Africa. So there's a South African link. And it's one of my top biohacks for sleep. So could you just tell us, Tara, how you got involved with the ChiliPAD and the OOLER, and just tell me about temperature and sleep?
Yeah, so, Todd and I are sort of serial product developers, inventors, as you would. We've brought over 100 different products to market. Todd's uncle actually invented the waterbed. So we're kind of geeks when it comes to that. About 2007, we launched this ChiliPAD product thinking similar as you described it, of like, how can we solve the temperature fight between the two of us? Because some of us are very hot and some of us don't want to freeze to death every night. So we were always in that same dilemma of how to get it right. And at that point, there was dual climate control and seats and cars and things. And we're like, if you can control the different temperatures in a car, for goodness sakes, you got to be able to do it in your bed. So that's really where it started. But the phenomenal science that has started to catch up on what temperature does to sleep, really, I've just sort of geeked out on it. I've never been a good sleeper. And, when you look at what temperature can do for someone that is a chronic insomniac, it's pretty powerful as a tool, because it bypasses your thinking prefrontal cortex and allows you to sort of talk to that unconscious part of your body. Temperature is actually a trigger to your hypothalamus, the release of melatonin, all of those good sleep parts. And so when you can use temperature to manipulate your sleep cycles and timing for sleep, it's a pretty powerful, drug-free, like no willpower kind of hack, which I'm into all of those.
Wow. Well, that sounds cool. And if you just think from an ancestral wisdom point of view, there weren't internal home thermostats that are regulating the temperature. So, we were just so much more used to dealing with the cold and being exposed to the cold. And we know that cryotherapy carries so many benefits. So I've just found personally in my own life, just getting into that bed that's much cooler, and you never find a hot spot, because what happens, obviously the cooling water is flowing through the chili or the OOLER, and you're just comfortable and snug the whole time. And I just, looking at Matthew Walker's work and his books that he's written, I never thought that temperature was such a big deal, but just since I've had the OOLER, it's been a game changer. And what are the testimonials from a lot of your clients, and how many OOLERs have you sold with regards to temperature?
Yeah, so Todd can talk to the units sold, but just a real fast sort of affirmation of what you're talking about, that ancestral part. So our bodies, our circadian rhythm, our chronotype, is that clock that runs every mechanism in our body, sleep especially, is driven by these cues in our environment, both light and temperature. Some people being more sensitive to temperature, some people being more sensitive to light. All of us generally some sensitivity, but it is those cues. And if you think about the planet cooling down every night, when you're outside and trained to the outside temperature, it cools off even a little. Even on those hottest days, it's a little bit cooler when the sun goes down, and it warms up in the morning. And our body, the hormonal releases actually mimic that. So when it starts to cool off, that's when you get the release of melatonin. And when it starts to warm up, you actually get a cortisol, that first morning burst that you should get if you've slept well when it starts to warm up. So there is definitely a temperature element to that ancestral part that we're hacking into by using the ChiliPAD or OOLER.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting you connect that with kind of what's happened almost unintentionally with the modern day mattresses. And we've taken out the natural temperature relieving, like if we were sleeping on an innerspring mattress or even back further on straw mattresses or closer to the ground, we never had the kind of latent heat buildup that we have in modern mattresses. So we're actually going the opposite way of what our circadian rhythm wants to take us. So the mattress generally hits its maximum heat carrying capacity around the time at about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning when our body should be the coolest. And our mattresses aren't letting us be there. So despite even like us trying to get back to our kind of the lineage, the heritage of how we evolved, our modern day mattresses are really kind of nightmare for us, our optimal sleep from a temperature profile.
Yeah, so it's really an opportunity to sleep like a caveman is one of the ways you look at it. You know, when you look at the paleo move and some of those of like, how can we be a little more natural? Actually sleeping cooler at night is although it's a tech evolution, it's actually going back to our roots of what our body really wants to have at night.
Absolutely. And, biohacking is all about it, trying to move you towards living more ancestrally, that we've been living for generations. So either we've got to sleep outside, which would probably be first prize, but not really practical, is it, to sleep outdoors?
No.
But all we got to
There's a couple downsides with that.
Exactly. And,
certainly in South Africa. I know when we were there, being inside, there's definitely perks.
Correct. But you know what I've also found, and I'm going to just divert a little bit, is I wear an OOLER ring. I've been wearing it for 1.5 years now, and it measures your temperature.
Yeah, we're both.
Oh, brilliant. And I've just noticed since I've, adopted the OOLER system that my temperature is either exactly where it should be or it's even minus 0.1. So it's never on the hotter side. So I don't find that irritation and that heat, especially in the summer. I'm all snugged up even in the middle of summer. So I've got the data to show how my sleep has improved. Also what's happened to my temperature at night, which is a significant factor with regards to sleep and sleep quality, not only quantity. So could you just explain or just maybe unpack a little bit about sleep data? Have you seen some significant changes in the sleep data of your customers?
Yeah. So, first off, what we call sleep density, one of my big missions is, yes, there's all this conversation around 8 hours of sleep, but most of, the myth of 8 hours comes from when we became industrialized, when there was factories, there was that daytime work part that we had to do. So, I think we've, prior to industrialization, a lot of cultures slept at least biphasically, where they had multiple sleep times, so there's that part. But what we still need to talk about beyond that hourly part is the quality of what you're getting. And deep sleep especially is something that's very hard to get. If you have any sort of mental health issues, you stop going into deep sleep. As you age, you stop getting deep sleep. Most disease profiles, we talked about even prior to going on here, of Dr. Walls and MS, fibromyalgia, any neurological or autoimmunes all have challenges with temperature. So, there's multiple cases where you're going to lose that deep sleep. And the value of deep sleep, they're just starting to hit the tip of the iceberg of all the things that happen that are so important to us during that time. So at the start of deep sleep, your brain actually gets washed. So your spinal fluid comes up, washes it, removes the toxins, removes some of that tau protein that they're seeing build up in Alzheimer's patients. Cognitive and memory loss are all sort of attributed as we get older to that lack of deep sleep. But then there's the physical part of all of our muscles and that recovery. So our athletes that use it for that physical side. They also need to get that deep sleep in order to have that muscle recovery. You mentioned cryotherapy. That's one of the benefits of cryotherapy. And deep sleep is a natural part of our body systems that allows us to get a lot of that same treatment to our muscles, to our organs, and allows us to recover. Temperature will allow us to lower that heart rate and get more deep sleep. So, there's so many data points, HRV scores, those recoveries, those lower resting heart rates earlier in the night versus later in the night. Absolutely. All those metrics that look at recovery and health, temperature has a huge way of manipulating that.
And the other part of sleep density, Tara kind of mentioned, is with the reduction of sleep latency, because you can fall asleep so much faster by sort of artificially dropping the temperature, you're able to get into that first cycle much more quickly. And so for the total time in bed, what we've seen, what we find pretty magical is we can get higher quality of total sleep in 6 hours than kind of garbage sleep over 8 hours.
Wow. And
that's where we're seeing a lot of the American Special Forces adopt the technology, because they're they can't always control how much time they have in the rack. So they really need to maximize for their ready state, maximize their amount of deep sleep. So there's kind of some fun things happening with people that are super geeking out on the science of it. So it's absolutely measurable.
Yeah, and honestly, with the coronavirus, we did we're in the middle of doing a 1-for-1 campaign where we've been giving ChiliPADs to first responders from a healthcare perspective. So we've got doctors and nurses, and as Todd talked about, again, not great sleep history, poor timing, poor, shift work, all the ways in which sleep would be disrupted. And the testimonials coming back from that are just phenomenal. Again, if you don't have a lot of time to sleep, if your sleep isn't matching your circadian rhythm, all those things that are going to disrupt your sleep, temperature is a way of talking to that unconscious brain and saying, okay, now's the time to get some good sleep.
Yeah, that's right. And one of the hacks that my listeners may have heard of is I have a cold shower just before I get into bed. And then I've got the OOLER that's been primed since 5:30 that afternoon. So by the time I get in there, it's at the best temperature that I feel for myself. What's nice is that we'll get into the weeds now and just do a deeper dive on the dual zone. But I can set the temperature specifically for my side of the bed. Where it's very different for my wife. So keeping cool just before you sleep is a very, very important biohack and something that's been part of our ancestral sort of habits and lifestyle. What I do want to ask you, which is a personal question, but I hope that's going to help my listeners, is that I've seen deep sleep improve. I've seen obviously latency and HRV, but could you tell me about REM sleep? It's been something that's been difficult to improve on my sleep data, and I generally got good sleep scores, and I work hard at my sleep because I think it's crucial and fundamental. A lot of people still think they have got the old adage that you can sleep when you're dead, but I think that's been disproved again and again. But could you tell me about REM sleep, and have you seen some significant changes or moves of the needle with the Chili and the OOLER?
Yeah, so REM sleep is really interesting. I think that the best way to describe sleep is a state of balance. And so if you look at a 20-year-old or sort of that optimal sleeper when you're young and have less things to stress about, the ideal window is about 2 hours of deep sleep and about 2 hours of REM. And so one of the things that we're seeing, and this is what led me to build what I call my sleep recipe or 3 buckets of sleep or 3 zones of sleep, because we've had a bunch of people, because they're sleeping so cool, they're actually getting more deep sleep and it's actually cannibalizing REM sleep. So one of the ways I like to think about temperature when you're setting your OOLER, especially where you can set that schedule, is I still like to warm up to fall asleep. I actually even use our Chili weighted blanket as well for that. And so I warm up to fall asleep. Todd obviously likes it cold, so he does not warm up to sleep. But it's really important for that second zone to get colder. And that second zone is really what your circadian rhythm is doing there, is it's actually dropping to its lowest point of the day. You're trying to drop off 2 degrees of body temperature during that time. And that's why if that mattress is heating up, your body is fighting with the mattress to try to drop that heat off. And so your zone, based on when you go to sleep and your chronotype, for me, I'm a morning person. I go to sleep around between 9 and 10 every night is my ideal window. And so for me, that lowest point is more like 3 o'clock in the morning. Todd's much more of a late person. So obviously that'll shift based on when you go to bed and your ideal time. But on that second half of the night, your body is trying to warm back up. And it's, we talked about matching what's happening on the planet. During that time, the earth is starting to warm up as the sun comes around. And so it is starting to warm up. And that's second half of the night is really about REM sleep. If you think of the probability of your deep sleep zone being the first half and REM being the second half, you want to be a little bit warmer for that REM. So if you're seeing your numbers not be representative in the sense of balance, and those 2 proportions being about the same, that's very likely what's happening is you need to be a little bit warmer for REM sleep. Your body's response to temperature and cold shifts in that second half of the night. And if you warm up, you're going to get better REM.
So maybe we can just take a deeper, sorry, Todd, because I think this is crucially important. And all I do is I set my OOLER to 13 degrees, the lowest from 5:30. I get in there and I do warm it up just so if I wake up at 6, then at 5:30 I'll set it up to a warming mode. But I'm literally setting it as cool as I can. I get under the cover and I put my my duvet on and I snuggle up, and it's comfortable for me. But what I'm hearing you, that might be sort of affecting my REM sleep. So what would be if you could just traditionally walk me through how I should go from a temperature point of view on my own OOLER system?
Yeah, so if you're at 13 in your coldest part of your night, and if that's what you're staying in and you're down there, you want to warm up probably between 3 to 5 degrees Celsius. And there may be a little bit of play there, but what you're trying to do is, again, your core body temperature. And that's where Aura is a little bit different in the sense because it's taking that basal temperature, which is on your skin temperature. So it's not totally getting at what your core is. Unfortunately, that's the holy grail, is to try to get core body temperature while you're sleeping. But in general, that's a pretty uncomfortable thermometer in a place you don't want to have a thermometer, and you don't want to do that all night. So, Aura Ring does a really good job. But if you figure out what that is and then work on finding that balance. But in general, most people will find it's within 3 to 5 degrees.
So do I set the hotter at night and then in the cooler in the morning, or do I do it the other way around?
No, it's cooler for your deep sleep and a little bit warmer for REM. And if you've got an OOLER, this is easy because you can go into scheduling. And if you open the scheduling part of the app, it'll allow you to set when you go to bed and sort of set those zones. And I would play with it a little bit to see, based on when you're going to sleep and your chronotype, that somewhere between 3 to 4, maybe as late as 5 if you're going to, super night owl and it's midnight, you're going to bed, play around a little bit with that timing, and you'll get to a spot where you really do want that balance, though. It should be split.
And the way I think about it is essentially, if you put yourself into what Tara's called non-shivering thermogenesis, you're basically in a hypernative state. But if you stay too cold too long, you'll wake up. So for me, I put it on the maximum cold. I'm a pretty big guy. I put off a lot of heat. And so for me, I want to be at max cold up until about 5 o'clock in the morning. Okay. And that's when I need to start seeing that increase in temperature slightly, or I'll wake up cold. So you want to push your limits. You want to basically set it as cold as possible without actually waking up cold.
Okay.
Because that will put you in your coldest state. That's where you get your vitals down as low as possible to get the maximum recovery. And boosting that up, that'll allow you to kind of maintain and shift back and get more of that REM sleep kind of later in the night, right? Instead of just light sleep or kind of, garbage sleep.
Yeah, and the science behind that is really neat. Clifford Sapir out of Harvard, starting in 2003, was the first time he's really started looking at it. And he has discovered what he even calls this a sleep switch, which is triggered by temperature. I think the latest article on that was 2018 in October. And I can send you that afterwards if you want. But the sleep switch is really interesting. When it's triggered, your body that's when it's releasing its melatonin, it's releasing all those sleep hormones. And what it does do is it signals your body, you get a much deeper first signal part of that deep sleep cycle. So your deep sleep will last longer and it goes deeper down into that sleep. So your resting heart rate really starts to crash down where you want it to. So it's a good signal as part of that. But when you think about turning on sleep, you also have to turn off sleep. And the other side of that turning off your sleep is actually warming your body. So a lot of people, that's where they're not getting the REM and they're actually not turning off their sleep. And so in the morning, you want to be able to do that. That triggers those reverse side of those hormones of a little bit of cortisol. It gets you started in your day. So you actually want to start boosting that, and it'll create a better sleep drive balance. So you obviously, the moment you wake up, you start the sleep drive towards the next night. And the moment you shut off that switch, if you can shut it off instead of easing out of sleep, it just makes it more succinct, and it makes those cycles easier for that clock to be spot on. If you want to, stopwatch it, basically.
Okay, so I basically go to bed at 10 o'clock at night. So I would start with the 13 degrees then. We're talking Celsius here in South Africa. So, and then about 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, you would say that I would probably heat it up to say about 16 degrees, maybe go 3 degrees, and then see what happens.
And see what that does to your REM sleep. But I'm guessing that's where it's going, because your body will actually stretch that deep sleep cycle. And that's where part of it is once you start getting that recipe down, if you've had a highly physical day, for example, or you've had a big load for the day before and you're looking for optimal recovery, that's when you would actually throw this out of the window, because you don't need as much REM sleep if your body's heavy into recovery. And so that's where some of the coaching can come in of, well, sometimes it's okay to be heavily weighted on that deep sleep. And if you know what you need to do to weight that, if you know you're not feeling well, or you're going, you're looking at your metrics and you're able to see that you 2 days out, you should see on your Oura ring, you can actually do some predictions on when you're not feeling well. So that's where I would set it heavily into that deep sleep, and cannibalize the REM is good, but then you can't do that forever. So that you should then swing back to a more balanced state.
What would you say about REM? Because I found that when I don't get enough REM sleep, I do watch those numbers carefully, is that mentally I'm tired and cognitively I struggle the next day. My deep sleep scores, I'm an athlete and I do ultra run marathons. I've done 11 comrades, which is a 56-mile race, 11 years in a row now. So I'm training 6 days a week. And so my deep sleep is very, very important from a recovery point of view. But I do find that without REM sleep, cognitively, it's a real problem for me, just mentally to focus. Is that the same sort of feeling you get, or testimonies you have?
Yeah, so REM sleep is often attributed to, so your cognitive load, both REM sleep and deep sleep are required for filing your memories and keeping that cognitive load. So your brain really is like a computer, and you figure if you fill up all that REM or RAM memory, that sort of random access higher level memory, and you never put it off, then you'll have to clean your computer. You'll have to get it restarted so it's not all just sitting up there. And so what happens is if you don't get that REM sleep and you're not balancing it with deep sleep, what happens is those memories don't have a chance to get filed. So over the course of 2 weeks, your brain actually works through, hey, is this something I need to remember? Do I need to know what I had last Tuesday for lunch? Over the course of 2 weeks, at some point, it'll throw that out. It'll say, no, I needed to know what I ate yesterday, but I don't necessarily need to know what I ate like over a course of years. Sure. So it shifts on where that memory is. And there's a cognitive, emotional part to how do you decide to do those memories? And that's the role of REM is, and a lot of that dreaming is to decide what stays and what goes. And so without REM sleep, without a chance to work through that in a balanced way, you end up basically with clogging that memory and cognitive load, and you're not able to sort of reset it. The role of sleep is basically turning off your computer and turning it back on, and a chance to refresh everything. Wow. And if you're not doing that in a balanced way, then over time, like I said, on a 1 or 2 nights, it's not going to make a difference, but over time, you'll find that you're starving for that REM.
Okay. Well, it sounds like every single person needs a ChiliPAD and an OOLER, because sleep is so fundamental to our health and our well-being and our performance, and optimizing all these areas of our life. We've compromised on this area significantly. And so talking about REM sleep and talking about the glymphatic system, where at night we get this glymph that's cleaned out and our brain cells are washed. A lot of work by Dr. David Perlmutter, who I've been listening to for many, many years, and I see that he promotes Chili and OOLER. Tell us a little bit about Dr. David Perlmutter, and just knowing how safe this product is. Just my listeners might just want to hear, how safe is it? Is it for everybody? And what does Dr. David Perlmutter have to say about the Chili and the OOLER?
Yeah, so if you want to talk to, sort of his role of.
Yeah, so I mean, we're fortunate. Actually, Dr. Perlmutter is an investor in our company as well. So he doesn't support it just philosophically. He actually invests. He's put money into our business because he does believe in it that much. When we've had conversations with him in the past, obviously a big concern of his is about EMFs and about managing kind of exposure. And that's one of the things that we're so excited about. We have worked really hard to keep our system water based. And so there's any electrical system creates an EMF. So we can't eliminate that because we're using electricity to change the temperature of the water, but we're doing that all in the control unit, and that control unit is designed to sit far from the bed. So the only thing in the actual mattress itself is silicone tubes and water. And so when we're thermally control that water, we're circulating that in tubes, and that allows us to get a separation. When you compare that to like an electric blanket, where you're literally sleeping on an electromagnetic field, that's terrible. That's actually one of the things that we've also been kind of playing with. people that are using other sleep diagnostic tools outside of the Oura Ring, most people put on an airplane mode because they're aware of it. But there's other sleep diagnostic tools, even like Bedit, that you're sleeping on an electromagnetic field to get those measurements, and that's an area that we feel like is an opportunity for innovation down the road. But yeah, we're really excited about ours. And Tara, do you want to talk a little bit about the EMF field and even some of you've kind of come across some interesting concepts about how that is reduced with temperature itself?
Yeah, so EMFs, I'm assuming your audience is aware of how EMFs work. Anytime you have an electron move, it creates a magnetic field. So in our houses, there's obviously lots of sources of EMFs. As Todd mentioned, we work really hard to keep our EMF profile and signature low. As a physicist, this has been part of the goal from the beginning. And one of the reasons why we, as Todd alluded to, that we do not have data tracking so that it can stay absolutely pure. There's no implications if you have a pacemaker or even autoimmune disease where there's a higher sensitivity to EMFs. That's why we've kind of kept this place of sleep very sacred and free of those. So that's, part of the drive for that. Some of the results of EMF, if you are, a human and you live on this planet in any sort of city, you've got Wi-Fi, you've got, all these different cell phone networks. We live in an EMF heavy environment, at least compared to 50 years ago. So EMFs are definitely a part of our day-to-day experience. When you look at the cellular level, when people are exposed to EMFs, and there's probably 6% of the population they estimate it has a higher propensity. That's where you get EMF sensitivity. But even for just the regular Joes that are out there, you're going to have a slight warming in your cells. That's one of those things that they've measured. If your cell phone, if you're keeping it close to your head, those sort of things, you're getting that close to your brain. Those cells get warmed up. And so one of the reasons we're looking at no EMFs again is no impact on that. But if you are having the impact, from a thermodynamic perspective, we talk about something called entropy, which is how we measure the aging of the universe. It's a combination of heat and time. And that entropy is really what that EMF field is doing to your cells. And the effect of entropy over time is very disruptive. It adds, as I mentioned, it's part of how we age, discover and talk about the age of the universe. So obviously, if it's having an impact on speeding up the aging of our cells, that's not something to be left out. However, cryotherapy, OOLER systems, anytime you can cool that system down, anytime you can pull entropy out of the situation, which is what those are doing, that's sort of the opposite of heat and time, is pulling that chaos out, it allows our cells to recover better. That's why we see a lot of those Wim methods, things like that are really helpful. It's to reduce that impact on our bodies over time. And especially when you think about sleep as one where all those recovery parts that we talked about, in order for your body to do that, it's not just getting deep sleep, but it's deep sleep in a healing state that isn't being disrupted by those outside EMFs. So there's, if you can, I really do try to encourage people to turn off their Wi-Fi at night. Try to keep that bedroom space as clean as you can. And an apartment or whatever, it's a little harder. But if you're able to keep that space clear of EMFs at night, we can't always control our day, but keep it sacred at night. It really does help that healing recovery time.
Absolutely. And a lot of my listeners know that I've studied at the GeoVital Academy. I'm a certified geobiologist. And so I've studied everything from electromagnetic fields, high frequency radio waves, to the electrical fields, as well as geopathic stress. And these are huge factors with regards to our sleep quality and quantity. And so these are important, factors to bear in mind with regards to improving our health and just optimizing our performance. And that's what I loved about the OOLER and the Chili, is that you've gone through the process of making sure that it's a safe product. And someone like David Perlmutter, who I highly respect, used these products over many years, read a lot of his books, who's there really not to, he doesn't have, his vision is not to make money. It's really to change the world and transform people's, lives. So, well done to you, and well done for incorporating him with regards to this product. I think that was a very, very clever and wise and also safe move for your customers, because you do want the best for them. through the process. And hopefully I'll be able to get him on my show one day soon. He's a busy person, but I think as a functional neurologist, I don't think we've got any functional neurologists. And for my audience out there, if there's anyone in South Africa that that's a functional neurologist, please let me know, and I'm open to meeting them, discussing functional neurology. But I don't think there are too many functional neurologists worldwide. And so a man and his son, who I highly respect, and very grateful for them with regards to health and performance. For your own side, there's a very, very successful geobiologist and EMF consultant called Brian Hoyer. And I don't know if you've heard of Brian, but he runs a company called Shielded Healing in America. And he probably does more home assessments.
I've heard of Shielded Healing.
Yeah. And he's a great guy. He's worked with Brian Richards and to make their sauna totally EMF free. There's not a single other sauna that is totally EMF free that comes off this incandescent near infrared sauna. So, there are a lot of people that understand the damaging effects of, EMF in this world. So well done to you. Could I just ask also, in terms of, and this from you, Todd, how long will a OOLER or a Chili last? What are the differences between the two, and what can a customer expect from, a warranty perspective and a life duration of these products?
Yeah, so the ChiliPAD is the original product we came out with. We actually, believe it or not, we started selling them in 2007. So for us, it's been quite a journey. The product we're shipping now under the ChiliPAD is the cube that we started shipping in 2014. So we take our business philosophy as one of constant improvement. So we're always looking for ways to innovate, make it colder, make it quieter. So we continue to reinvest in our company with increased engineering staff and capabilities. So the product that people have tried in the past, it's getting better literally every single time we go back into production. So our product comes with a 2-year warranty because we really want to take care of our customers and make sure that their investment in sleep is respected and protected on our side. We actually repair our systems here in the US. As we're growing internationally, we're slowly setting up repair facilities, regional repair facilities. So we'll have a regional repair facility set up in Europe. As we connect further with your audience, we hope to have the ability to set up a repair facility in South Africa, and then Australia would be the next one. So it has a 2-year warranty. We're designing the product to live 3 to 5 years. There's really only 2 main components that are kind of the moving parts of the system, if you will, and that's the fan and the pump. So that's really, as we continue to improve the system, we're looking to improve the quality of the pump and the fan to make sure that we get the people get the most out of the system. It can be cleaned, so we want to make sure people keep the water clean. That'll take some pressure off the pump. Make sure that it's pumping water, not pumping water plus other stuff. There's little simple things.
Yeah, and that's the same stuff you'll see built up in a humidifier or other things. It's just that water gets gungy. But, I think when you look at the differences of Chili to OOLER, Chili is your traditional thermostat where you set it to one temperature. It's those old-fashioned dials or whatever that is, and you set it and forget it. It will stay doing whatever you set it to as long as you leave it. OOLER is sort of the evolution of all that customer feedback that we've had from Chili on how to make it better. So OOLER is app driven, so you can do scheduling. It's your smart thermostat for your bed. So that's kind of the idea behind it. You can adjust the fan speed for noise. It has UV light, so it gets clean by itself. You don't have to, it's a little bit less service heavy that way. So it's, all of those pluses that we got feedback of. How do I spend less time even servicing it, which is not a high impact even for Chili, but then we've sort of mitigated a bunch of those in OOLER, and that's kind of what it's new and exciting.
Yeah, it's actually operates on lower power too. So it's operating on 140 watts of power versus the original ChiliPAD Cube operates on about 170. Okay. And it gets colder. So we figure out some ways to build in some additional thermal efficiencies. So we're able to extract more cooling capacity even though it's running on less electricity. So it is less power hungry, and which also means the trade-off, because it's more thermally efficient, it doesn't have the same kind of heat buildup. We have heard from some customers, if you're on max cold, if you're in a small bedroom environment, that heat's going somewhere.
Yeah.
So we want the maximum efficiency of the system so the room can stay as cool as possible, as under the sheets or under the blankets is getting as cold as possible as well.
Great. I did find in the summer on a very, very hot night that I battled to start the night with, with a sheet or a quilt on top of me. And I just find that, is there any way to get this unit colder, or do you just have to make sure that you've got a quilt or a cover over you to make sure? Because I did see that it didn't get as cold in the very, very hot nights.
That's true. It's all about delta T. So there is some limitations on the maximum temperature difference it can create from the ambient. But you already mentioned early, and it's possible for your listeners to kind of skip past it, but you mentioned about pre-cooling your bed. That's essential on those hot nights because what you're continuing to just extract heat out of the bedroom system. And so if you can get the latent heat out of the mattress and you're getting into a cooler environment, it's just going to stay cooler longer, even if you can't get your maximum. And it's still all about the maximum cooling as that first part of the night to get your body into sleep. If we are, again, our mantra here is colder, quieter, smaller. So everything we're trying to do is colder, quieter, smaller.
Nice.
To make it easy to use, make it easy to set up, and make it as cold and as quiet as possible.
Fantastic. In terms of cleaning it, I haven't cleaned the unit yet. I've been using it for 6 months. What are my steps here? Do I have to check my app, or if I've got a Chili, what do I do to clean it? Or, what do you recommend from a maintenance point of view?
So there is a deep clean cycle on the app that you can go ahead and use. So if you start seeing any biological buildup in the water, that's the thing to do first, is do a deep clean cycle. You can find that under the device menu on the app.
Okay.
You can also treat it with a hydrogen peroxide based cleaning. The one common here in the States, we actually sell a Chili cleaning solution, but it may be fairly expensive to ship internationally. So the alternate is to use a hydrogen peroxide based cleaning solution. There's two different sides of cleaning. One, you want the water to be maintained, but if you've already got biological growth, you need to basically clean it and then also maintain the system. So, to basically put it on deep clean, you can add that cleaning system, cleaning solution, and then dump out the water if it has been taken a while since it's been cleaned, or has any sort of visible biological growth. But that's what we recommend our patients do, so they can have a system that kind of takes care of them, sort of take care of the system so it can take care of you.
Absolutely. What I do want to have a look at now in terms of, your journey, what are the biggest mistakes you've made along the journey? I mean, you're young entrepreneurs and where did the greatest resistance come, and how did you overcome it?
So I will start with the fact that the very first article that tied sleep to a lack of health was in 1999. So when you think about this journey of sleep as something you want to improve or optimize or fix, when we first launched in 2007, it really wasn't even part of the general conversation. And it's only in the last really 15 years that conversation has gotten more succinct. So one of the first things we had to struggle with is selling it into a brick and mortar store, like a mattress store, and trying to explain why you wanted to add this onto your bed. It just wasn't even part of the conversation. People would go to buy a mattress, and still do fundamentally, almost like they do buy a couch or another piece of furniture. They sit on it, they try it out. Does it look right? Is it within their price point? They're not buying it actually as a sleep improvement product. And so we were misconnected a little bit early on the conversation, I think, of where we were in sleep, but it's also enabled us patent-wise and other technology-wise to stay ahead of the herd that way and really be leaders in this space. But it was definitely, we were early and the conversation wasn't entirely ready to talk about how to optimize sleep. That's why biohackers have been our sort of first adopters, because they understand sleep way before sort of that general public got there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and as entrepreneurs, I feel like we've done just about everything wrong you can do. And that's part of the adventure is stay durable, because you're going to screw stuff up, you're going to make mistakes, but kind of that never quit mentality. It's kind of a fun, interesting thing. Just in the last 60 days, Tara's become CEO of our company. So I led as CEO for up until earlier this year, the end of the first quarter. And Tara took over to really it's an opportunity for her to really start working on her vision of sleep as a future. And, moving even beyond what we see as our physical products, which is currently the ChiliPAD and OOLER, And we'll be working on a digital side of our products. You mentioned, at some point possibly talking about what are the other tips and tricks on how do we improve sleep beyond temperature. And that's really the whole next frontier that we're getting really excited about.
Yeah, super excited about that. So, how do you create new habits? How do you bring new products and supplements and things into your experience? How do you overall change that? And as a biohacker, people spend a lot of time trying to figure that out. But how do we deliver that same sort of biohacker approach to the masses? How do we encourage them to try new things? And so that's been a big part of my passion, because I think I'm just frankly addicted to helping people sleep better and get well. And, I've found in my own health, working through Hashimoto's and things like that, and relieving stress, just the importance of sleep in that equation. And how can I deliver that to more people? And technology is just brilliant in how you can do that, and how you can sort of be in someone's pocket and be able to influence when they do that. It's, one of the questions I get asked is, if I take a supplement, when do I do it? How do I do it? How long do I need to take it before it has an impact? What dosage? How do I up the dosage if I've done it for so long? And, it's great biohackers like yourself that walk people through this, but how do we individualize that? How do we personalize that coaching and make it easy? And so that's really a big part of the drive, is to go beyond, this sort of hardware intervention, the addiction to not only telling someone because the sleep data says you sleep bad or your health is poor, but how do we coach people back to that wellness? How do we break it down into, this is what I do today, and I take baby steps to get where I need to? Because the overall wellness can seem very daunting, or fixing sleep. If you're an insomniac, it seems extremely daunting to tackle that and make progress on something that possibly your whole life you've never done well. So I think that's definitely the future of where we want to go and impact the world of wellness through our path of sleep.
Absolutely. And hopefully I can be your Southern African partner. We can develop a relationship to get all your products back down here in South. I do think we need them, and I think they carry much value. Tim Ferriss is the person that I heard from first about ChiliPAD. And tell me about your relationship with Tim. Do you still speak to him? Does he still use it? Chili, has he moved on to the OOLER yet?
Yeah, as far as I understand, he is sleeping on the OOLER now. So we're always trying to kind of tease him out with the latest, greatest products. If he's not sleeping on it yet, we hope soon. I think he'll be sleeping on the burrito that we call it, where it's the chili weighted blanket on top. So you've got cooling on top and then cooling below you. So for anyone that's not kind of hitting their cooling targets, that's the next best way to do it. There's a lot of negative feedback about weighted blankets, about just getting too hot. So there's the great kind of benefit of what weighted blankets do for you. And Tara can get into the science, but the downside is if you're too hot, you're not getting the kind of deep sleep you can get otherwise. So the compounding effect of being cooler on top and bottom, you just get greater thermal elasticity. But yeah, Tim, we've got a great relationship with Tim and his team and a lot of the people around him.
I could do a whole separate show on weighted blankets and what they can do. But as a weighted blanket user, anxiety is, especially when you look at how something like a coronavirus or financial stress, there's so many different stressors in our lives. That weighted blanket, again, about that sort of no other impact. It's a straight serotonin fix that, when you go to sleep at night, that deep pressure releases serotonin, which just helps the chemical makeup of what you go into sleep. So, the people that will really benefit from it is someone that has a hard time. Their mind is still spinning before they go to bed. They're looking for sort of that physical cue again to shut down. And, you mentioned some of those other tips, but that's where under the weighted blanket, to do your journaling, to read, to start expressing gratitude, meditation, those nighttime activities. When you combine that with a weighted blanket, it's pretty magical in reducing that sleep latency for anyone in that kind of systematic problem.
Oh, fantastic. I think I'm going to get myself a weighted blanket, try it out first, which I do.
I
with
know
all my
somebody. I know somebody. I can hook you up.
You hook me up then and we can have a look at it. And the thing we do at Made to Thrive is we always try the products, make sure that it's safe for myself and my family before I recommend them to the community. So I'd love to try that, and we can probably have a part 2 at a later stage and talk about weighted blankets. But let me move on to one of my favorite biohackers, Ben Greenfield. He mentions chili. Any other biohackers that use your product, or celebrities that you want to just let my audience know?
Well, we can't talk about all the celebrities. We can talk about, we have royalty and presidents and hundreds of professional athletes that sleep on it.
Yeah.
Among the people that we're directly connected with, aside from Ben Greenfield, there's Chris Crusher and Rob Wolf, Joe Mercola. There's a lot of people in the wellness space. John Durant, music producer Rick Rubin. There's
Mark
a lot
Sisson.
Mark Sisson, who's Mark's Daily Apple. A lot of the people that have been kind of pioneers of the space. We're proud to say not only are they kind of support our product by talking about their use of it, but a lot of those guys are directly investors in our company as well. We struggled for a long time back to the kind of entrepreneurial journey. We bootstrapped this thing up until 2017. And we was all just kind of blood, sweat, and tears. And we had, this group of people basically came to us and said, look, we love your product, but when it breaks, it sucks. So how do we make it better? How do we improve the system? And with their investment, that's how we were able to get OOLER to market.
I will say along those lines, as you alluded to, there is an addictive nature to sleeping cool. And so that kind of factors into that same role of like, you guys, I can't live without this. So how do we keep this going forever?
Yeah,
well, Dave Osprey's another
Dave
one.
Osprey as well. Okay, great. He uses the OOLER.
So Dave Osprey, and then actually another huge connector of ours is kind of stays under the radar, but it's Kelly Starrett. I don't know if you know Dr. Kelly Starrett.
I do.
Amazing guy, incredible connector. I do believe that's how we actually got the first sample to Tim Ferriss, was through Kelly.
Okay. Yeah, and he's on our medical board. So on our medical board, we have the Kelly Starrett. We have Michael Grandner, which is out of the University of Arizona, sort of a behavioral psychiatrist, really big in sleep. And then Chris Winters also has a sleep book out, and he is connected through athletes and other things. So we sort of on that medical board of sort of really passionate people about the sleep space and how we can make it better. So they're also pushing us behind the scenes.
Now, Made to Thrive Nation, I want you to hear that. We are not only talking about ancestral wisdom principles, we're talking about modern science, modern biohacking and science with a medical board that is checking out what happens to you medically. So what a company that is really trying to transform lives, taking from both sides, from ancestral principles to modern science. So, I salute you and I respect you both, and thank you so much. I'm so grateful because every single night I get the privilege of sleeping on an OOLER, and I released a YouTube clip, and hopefully it's okay with you guys. You check it out and let us know. But one thing that my wife misses the most when we go away is the OOLER system. She's like, I just don't sleep as well without that. So
we are working on, full disclosure, we are working on a travel one for that reason. It's probably our biggest criticism is goes back to that addictive nature of if you travel, it's really hard to live without it, myself included. So that will be coming out. And I will say, if people want to find out more information, we do have a blog on our site that covers a lot of the topics we went through. I have a book on Amazon, Reprogram Your Sleep. And as well, I have a TEDx talk that'll be on the YouTube TEDx channel that will also kind of go through sort of my journey in sleep and talk through some of those different buckets of sleep that we talked about earlier.
Well done. Reprogram Your Sleep is a book, so you can have a look at that, and as well as a TED Talk. Well done to Tara Youngblood. And also, one of my heroes from podcasting is Mike Dillard. And, he went through his own, medical condition. He spoke highly. He interviewed you. And so, you've been around the block. You've spoken to a lot of people. A lot of people have tried and tested the unit. How many units have you sold, Todd? How many can you tell us in terms of worldwide sales?
We'd say we're now in the hundreds of thousands of units, or over 100,000 units.
Okay.
We don't disclose a lot of our revenue and unit numbers, but we're just really fortunate that when we've gone through our struggles as entrepreneurs, we've really had to dig deep and find our why.
Okay.
And our why is absolutely about changing lives. We're fortunate that our journey has just taken us to this spot that, we're able to really connect with our audience and deliver a product that has unique value. And we try to do it the best way we can. We're learning every day.
Well done. Well done. I got only a couple of questions as we wrap up the show, but second last question. What question have I not asked you that you think you'd like to answer that would be benefit to my audience?
Ooh, that was a tough one. I would say that if you're looking for, testimonial proof, to check the website, check our Facebook,
Okay.
check Instagram. Those are by far the best speakers of like yourself that have had their lives changed with it. I get goosebumps when I see some of them, especially some of the healthcare workers that are reaching back out after getting to sleep on it. It is a life-changing way of sleeping for a lot of people.
And I think, Tara, if you can go into the couple of tips for people to help get better sleep if they don't have or can't yet afford a ChiliPAD or OOLER, because we really care about the audience. This is, we have to do this to make money, otherwise we can't stay around. But the reality is we really care about people's sleep. What else should people be thinking about if they can't yet afford or don't yet have a ChiliPAD or OOLER?
Yeah, well, actually, you mentioned taking a shower before you go to bed. So when we talk about flipping that sleep switch for temperature, take that cool shower before you go to bed to try to cool your body off. If you're someone that needs to warm up, that's just fine. Make sure you're doing some sort of temperature change in that window of half hour before you go to sleep. It's that anxiety. It doesn't have to be a weighted blanket to reduce your anxiety, but, think about gratitude, meditation. There's some yoga nidra. There's lots of different sort of methodologies about how to dump what's in your head and be able to do that. And I think that the best tip in the whole world, and I can't own it because BJ Fogg at a Stanford behavioral specialist, we tend to use the restroom on average about 7 times a day. And if you want to make a small habit change, every time you use the restroom, you take a moment to breathe. And whatever that breathing activity is for you, there's lots of different ones. There's the 3 seconds in, 6 seconds out. If you do that about 6 times in a minute, they've actually found that you will dump all the cortisone in your bloodstream. You'll go from whatever that was measuring before to 0 of just 1 minute of breathing. And I feel like just breathe is the very best tip out there. And so if you're in the restroom, just take 1 extra minute and breathe and feel a whole lot better.
Fantastic. What great advice with regards to breathing. We are going to be doing a breathing podcast with hopefully Dr. Andrew Weil. And Dr. Andrew Weil is the 4 seconds in and the 7 seconds hold and the 8 seconds out. And what's important is that the exhale is much longer than the inhale, and that's engaging your parasympathetic nervous system and dealing with cortisol in the body. My last question, I just want to squeeze one question out, is sleep, your quality and quantity and immunity, your immune health. Can you just, in this crazy corona world, can you tell us about sleep and immunity?
Yes, it's very impactful. So a lot of the studies have linked, again, that deep sleep that we were talking about. With good deep sleep, you're actually, they've tested it with vaccinations. So someone that's not sleeping and they get vaccinated and then afterwards, so that, just immediate use of that vaccine in your body, it's twofold better. So, just on a flat out, like side-by-side comparison, but you look at all of those parasympathetic type responses, and without deep sleep, your body doesn't have that chance to reset and restart, and your immune system really needs that in order to be ready to take on that battle, to fight whatever comes into your system. And if you picture that, if your body's worn down, how can it take on the new battle if it's struggling to do what it needs to do? So that's where, when you add stress, you add some sort of disease profile, you're creating this perfect storm where your body's going to struggle to meet that need. But if you're well prepared for that battle, just like you'd be well prepared to go into a race or some sort of performance, same thing is when your body's going to go fight against something, it's basically performing, or it's basically racing against that disease. So we want to give it as much chance to be healthy going into that as possible.
Fantastic. And, partnering with Chili has been a privilege and a pleasure, and they've been very generous with new code MTT25 on the Chili, and which is 25% off, and an MTT15 on the OOLER. So we're really grateful that we could partner with you, and hopefully we can get some maintenance here in South Africa, because I'm sure we're going to sell a lot more units and really transform, Southern African lives. So thank you so much. I do have something that I'd like to do, and I'm going to end the show now. But just before we end the show, tell us where people can find you. I know you mentioned a few things. Where can they find
thanks
you?
again for having us on, Steve. This has really been a pleasure. For people can find more information at chilitechnology.com. That's CHILI technology.com. And we do ship internationally. We've shipped to over 100 countries in the last year. So we take our international customers seriously. The product is designed to work on every international power system. So you don't need an adapter. You don't need a transformer. We have regulatory approvals around the world. So, we are set up to service your customers, and we want to hear from you. Tell us what we're doing well, and tell us where we need to improve.
Great. Thank you so much. And for my audience now, we're hopefully going to go to, if we got 5 minutes that the Youngbloods can give me, is to go on Instagram Live. So I'm going to end the show, and just to the audience, there's a product that you can use. It's a safe product. It's called the Chili and the OOLER. I highly recommend it. I sleep on it every single night. It's one of the things I miss when I'm away from home. And temperature is key. Go to reprogram your sleep. Also, Matthew Walker's books are fantastic with regards to temperature. So, make sure that you get good sleep in this crazy time when anxiety is pervading and there's stress and just about the future and what's going to happen. We need good sleep. People are watching, series all through the night and on screens and Bluetooth devices and radiation, and it's compromising their sleep and the immunity. So thank you so much, and look forward to part 2 and get a weighted blanket and see how we can do that even better. Thank you so much.
Definitely.
Sounds great.